Hey man, what happened?
It's nothing. I just hurt my Achilles a little bit. I'm an athlete, so it's just a bruise. We'll get over it real soon. I think I'm dying.
2 hours later.
Crypto, will you hold my feet up?
No.
Come on, dude. I think it's the only way, otherwise I'm gonna die.
Take your medicine.
I don't want to take my medicine.
Then Una is finished. He is no more.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times in my life I've overreacted.
Are you like a soccer player?
I'm certainly not a basketball player. I actually did hurt my Achilles, so that wasn't totally acting. That part I actually did.
Hello guys, I am Crypto.
And I am Una. Welcome to the CodeX Cantina. We are doing the Death of Ivan Ilyich, and boy, is this going to be a tough one to break down, or what, Crypto?
Oh yeah, so this is, so let's talk initial first impressions. I don't know if I have ever loved to hate a book or short story, novella, or whatever so much as this one.
Dude, this is the girlfriend you want to stop thinking about, but you can't get her out of your head.
Yes, I'll give you my ranking right now, okay? Give you my ranking right now. If I just read this story, I'd give it probably a 2 or a 3 out of 10. I hated it. But
Okay.
because of so much discussion this is going to generate and so many things we can talk about tonight, I would give it so much higher than that because I couldn't stop thinking about this book. I was watching other YouTube videos on this. I was reading stuff about him. I want a biography of Tolstoy now. Like, I don't know. I couldn't stop thinking about what this book means.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, that you and I will never have the right mindset, in a sense. We're not Russian. We weren't born in 1886. We don't fully understand what the people were like at that time. That it's hard not to look at this through modern eyes and have judgment. But some of the literary themes, some of the underlying elements of what it means to be human, what it means to care about others, couldn't be more of an issue still today that I can absolutely relate to. That this is one of those pieces that at a surface level, it's very bland, right? There's not much imagery, there's not much scenery in this, but the real work is done in the underlining meaning of this story, that it is so relevant and so valuable today. It's a very complicated feeling of I don't like the surface level, just straight story and the way the story is told, but I love everything about the literary aspect of this book. Short story, novella, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's solid. Wasn't it like 263 pages or something? I mean, it's...
No. Well, in my book,
okay.
I bought this like collected shorter fiction, which has like 1,000 pages of just different short stories, and it's only 64 pages in this version, I think.
Oh, okay.
But it depends on your font, right? So, okay, let me lay some groundwork here too. So, highlights of Tolstoy. Did you know that his mother died when Tolstoy was 2, and his father when he was 9? He had 13 kids, of which 5 did not make it and died. So this is a guy that was surrounded by death, right?
And trying to find ways to cope with that, I think. And we can see that in this story.
So here's a quote from the Wikipedia page. In the 1870s, Tolstoy experienced a profound moral crisis, followed by what he regarded as an equally profound spiritual awakening. Became a fervent Christian anarchist and pacifist. Tolstoy's idea on nonviolent resistance had a profound impact on pivotal figures such as Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. This guy is a heavyweight when it comes to literature, that even if you don't like, I think, maybe the way that some of this story is written, his ideas are so valuable probably regardless of what language this is translated into.
Yeah, definitely. So I didn't realize that the two, Dr. King and Mahatma Gandhi, how heavily influenced they were by specifically Tolstoy and this story. So I guess Mahatma, he was a young man, and the way he was treated because of being Indian and being ruled by the British, he was looked as a second-class citizen. And there was, I guess, a story where he was like on a train and he had to sit in a different car. So you have, that segregation and everything. And he didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. And he read Tolstoy and literally changed his life and went into this different path and becomes one of the most important figures historically in the 20th century, right? Because of this, this guy's writing and specifically this story. And that brings me into my quote. The very fact of death of someone close to them aroused in all who heard about it, as always, a feeling of delight that he had died and they hadn't. And, I mean, to know that he is surrounded by death, oof, that's just... Yeah.
This is heavy work, and our discussion here won't be complete. I think we just have to accept that this is one of those pieces that you can read and talk about from so many different angles. One of my quotes that I had: Ivan Ilyich would turn his attention to and try to dive the thought of it away, but without success. It would come and stand before him and look at him, and he would be petrified, and the light would die out in his eyes, and he would again be asking himself whether it alone was true.
And when he goes into the it, and the it, and the it, it's just like, it's like a gut punch.
Oh, because he's confusing purposefully death and pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at some point you start to question whether there is a difference between death and pain, and whether if you are in pain, are you living death?
Or is life pain? Oh! Because you don't lose pain until you die, really, right?
This is this not probably going to be one of the pieces that we point to when people say, well, it's a short story. You can't develop characters in a short story, or you couldn't figure it all out, or you couldn't have a conclusion in a short story. Can you not point to this and this be a complete and whole work when it comes to literature?
Yes. Yeah. This is, if this still is not required reading at some point in education or higher education, then the education system is failing children of today. And they may not get it at 16, 17 years old. You may not get it at 22 or 23, but maybe you would come back to it, and maybe it would inspire you like a young Dr. King or Mahatma Gandhi or something. But yeah, this is one that should be mandatory to have to be read. Yeah. And we will reference back to this story a lot from here on going forward.
When you got done with this piece, were you not expecting, I'm curious, this is a question, were you expecting to rip this apart and say, well, this is why it's horrible, and you kept thinking about it, and it just kept getting better and better?
Yeah, because, again, I hate this story, but the value of it is astronomical from so many aspects of social, political, intellectual, religious. Did I say that one already? I mean, I don't know. Just economic. I don't know. It just I was not expecting this. And especially when, like you said, when I was done with it, I didn't expect to be able to love and hate something so much at the same time.
Yeah. Here, my next quote's a little bit
No,
lighter.
no, it's my turn.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So this one goes into what you said. This is not light. This is even deeper. I mean, we're going down the rabbit hole, folks. It can't be that life is so senseless and horrible. But if it really has been so horrible and senseless, why must I die and die in agony? There is something wrong.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, I got a light heart. I got a light one for you.
Okay.
Light, but still heavy. Ivan Ilyich's life has been most simple and most ordinary, and therefore most terrible. There were some humorous bits in this.
But his death is not that, which is crazy.
There were some humorous bits to this piece, were there not?
I guess I was so engrossed in the story of hating it so much and wanting to tear it apart that I think, didn't allow myself to see or enjoy any of the humor. And that's one of my own shortcomings. And I think that next October, I think we should read this again. And I think that we should revisit it and make a part 2 or 3 or 4 or how many ever times we made videos on this. And let me reflect on it for some time, and let me be a year older and 1 year closer to death, and then do another video, because maybe I would be able to glean more humor from it.
This is absolutely a piece you can reread. Absolutely. All right, let's jump into plot. So we're going to enter spoiler territory and then enter the discussion, which we're going to try and keep it down, but man, this is a piece that requires a lot of talk. So in terms of plot, Ivan Ilyich has died. Peter Ivanovich, Ilyin's best friend, heads to the funeral out of obligation. The newly widowed Praskovia Fedorovna pulls Peter aside and asks if there's any more money she can extract from the situation. Peter leaves the funeral early to meet with Fedor for a game of bridge. The narrator quickly orates Ivan's life up until he basically got married. He generally was average, takes comfort in pleasure. He gets married as it's the respectable thing to do, not really for love. When he has to live for others, like his wife or his kid, he becomes irate, tries to bury himself in work, puts up a happy front, and lives outside his means. Ivan Ilyich finds another job in St. Petersburg for more money. They decorate their house with ornate items and kind of keep up with the Joneses, if you will. While putting up drapes, Ivan Ilyich falls and hits his side. Ivan's pain grows. It infects those around him, and he can't find a diagnosis that he likes from the various doctors. He tries to understand death and pain and logically breaks it down as it. His pain becomes worse by the month. Others around him suffer from his affliction. Gerasim, a peasant servant, gives Ivan comfort when he holds his legs up and doesn't complain, but instead offers compassion. When his family heads to a theater, the way they look at him just enrages him. Gerasim re-enters, and it causes him to calm down again. He begins to think he didn't live as he should have. He has a dream about a black bag. Ivan Ilyich suffers and tells them they'll soon be rid of him and to just let him die in peace. Ivan Ilyich has a priest come to him for communion, 3 days of screaming, and Ivan Ilyich dies.
He is no more.
That's basically, that's the text. So now is the discussion.
Be prepared, people.
So there's so many different angles you can take this. I don't think any of them are wrong. I think all of them are interesting and all of them have merit.
Where would you like to start, sir?
My first question to you
Okay.
is, what is his illness?
Oh, I had that at the end of my discussion. That's interesting you started there. Because I put it at the end of my discussion.
Okay.
And I just want to point this out real quick. Because all I could think about through the whole damn story is what is wrong with this guy and could he be cured? And so I want to put that at the end of my discussion because I felt like that detracted so much of my thought on the story in the beginning that it just draws me on, but it just drew me in more.
Let me add to that though. Let me jump in real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
And that's fine that you think that. I think there are plenty of people that will think that. But that is also a very modern way of looking at this story, right? This is 1886 when this came out. You didn't have the medicine, you didn't have the technology, you didn't have the knowledge that you do today. That it's hard, like I said earlier in the opening, that it's hard to take your brain, disconnect it from all the modern ways of life and to be able to put yourself into that position way back when.
I think it's also modern entertainment or modern literature as well, where we have closure, because this is a plot hole that people in the internet would have been ripping apart of, what do you mean we don't know what happened, what he died of? How can you, like, that's one of the most important points of the whole story. You have to tell us what he died of. You have to tell us how he died. Like, there would be so many trolls online tearing up Tolstoy or the director, whoever, makes it into a movie, if they don't know what he died of, right? And so I think that's a modern ideal of closure.
And I think that's a literary element that Tolstoy employs on purpose, that he specifically does not call out the illness to allow the reader to project whatever they need to onto the story.
Yeah, and we're nerds, so I'm going to bring this up, because how many Star Wars nerds are so mad because they don't know what Padme Amidala dies of, right? After she gives birth to the twins, right? Because she just...
No, you're right.
She just dies like Ivan does. And I'm not saying his whole name,
Mysterious.
Because I was sick of that too. So I did put it at the end. Back to this. I had several things, and I wanted to run them by you and see what you thought, because I know a little bit about science and medicine and how the human body works, but could have been a ruptured spleen.
Dude, it doesn't matter.
Okay, but you asked me.
Well, I think why he dies is the most important point, that it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter if it was a ruptured spleen. He passed away, and the result of that action of him finding out that he's dying is the most important thing in his life, which allowed him to live. It allowed him to look at his life and said, I am not living the way I ought to be living.
Right.
And it took him a long time, and even through dying, to figure out that he was doing this all wrong.
Do you think it was cancer?
Damn it, Crypto.
I know, I see what you're doing. I know, I get it. I'm thinking,
right.
Is it an appendix? Is there such thing as a floating kidney? Is it cancer? Is he dying of a broken heart? Like, what's happening here?
Let me bring some intertextuality into this for you.
Okay.
And I actually haven't seen this done. This is 100% original, as far as I'm aware.
All right.
Have you heard of the name? And I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Soren Kierkegaard.
No.
Let me. So you heard a little bit about Leo's background.
Yes.
Right. So Kierkegaard was born a Danish aristocrat. He was surrounded by death in his family. He believes that there's a higher plane of existence in living rather than just pleasure. He wrote over 20 some odd books between 1813 and 1855 and is considered the father of existentialism. Anything ringing any bells in there?
Yeah, okay.
So he, kind of lived that Tolstoy life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me bring up something that when I'm an armchair philosopher. I don't have a degree in philosophy, but I do think it's interesting. I do think it's very good to discuss and bring into things. So one of the main shticks of Kierkegaard was the three planes of existence, three spheres of existence. Okay? And these were the competing views of the purpose of life, where the lowest level was what's called the aesthetic plane, the aesthetes, if you will. And this is people that lived just for sensory pleasure, for things at a surface value that just give them pleasure in the moment.
Like boobs?
The next, like boobs. Well, this is fun. This is fun, so I do it.
Okay.
The next level is the ethical plane, which is the idea that social values govern how you behave. So beyond just your own personal pleasure of it was fun, so I did it, this was the right thing to do, and this is kind of like that middle plane. And then the highest plane is what he viewed. This is his view, not saying it's correct, but is the religious view, where that instead of living for yourself, as opposed to living for others with the ethical, the highest plane is having a relationship with God and eternal, and having something to look forward to. No, for looking forward to is the wrong terminology. Having some relationship that lasts forever, which is the relationship with God. Is this hitting home for any of this readings that you had with this piece by chance?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, all of it.
So,
all of it on different aspects. We could talk about each one of those in depth about this story and Ivan Ilyich.
And I don't understand why there's not more literature written about this, because if you look at this, the way this story is structured, and again, there's a lot of different ways to take this. You got chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 1, I think some people would argue, is pointless.
No.
You could take out... I'm not saying it is. I'm saying some people could. Where you have this narrative point of view from Peter, his best friend, where he doesn't care. He does it out of obligation. But then the rest of the story is Ivan Ilyich. And the first chapter spoils it for those people that spoilers. I get why some people would have issue with it. But I think it's important for many reasons. But one of the reasons why I think from an aesthetic point, from Kierkegaard's perspective, is that this first part shows you that Ivan Ilyich was not alone in being selfish. It's not an Ivan Ilyich problem. It's a humanity issue where you see all of his coworkers talking about, how can I get a promotion out of this? What do I do at a funeral? I just want to get out of here. I just want to play bridge. I want to play cards.
And when they were in the funeral parlor, they were looking at his dead body. They're also somewhat reflecting on their own mortality, and he says it in there. Everybody's thinking it. I'm glad that dude is dead and I'm still alive. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a lot of self introflexion, I think, through the first couple of chapters, and I think they're vital because it does spoil it, and you're like, all right, I already know the dude's dead. What more could I want to know? What more could you not want to know about this? And it's crazy because I hate this story.
Well, isn't everything you described what you want? Mm-hmm. What would give you pleasure? Mm-hmm. Is that not all the first level, the aesthetic plane sphere of existence within Kierkegaard's theory?
Yeah, and that's what you're thinking about as you're reading chapters, I think, 1 and 2, right? And you're mm-hmm. thinking of, what can I know? What can I know? What more can I learn about this guy if I already know he's dead?
Yeah, both the people and the readers are going through that phase.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then you get into chapter 3, where they're living the pleasurable life, but they start putting things up, like in terms of keeping up with the Joneses, in terms of hanging things up. You have even kind of when they go to the play. What does a play represent? It's that outward representation of pretending to do things for other people. Right, like they're putting on this show, this performance for other people.
Yeah, I would also say that's a distraction from reality as well. I think the play could represent mm-hmm. the circus or TV, internet, video games, anything. It's a distraction, and that takes away from your life. And because later he kind of thinks about when he sees them going to the play. He gets angry and he gets mad.
Oh yeah.
At that.
Oh, he's revolted by it.
Yeah. So I think that represents something that enriches our lives in our own mind, and it doesn't necessarily really do that because he is revolted that they're going to do that, and here he's laying dying. Like, there's more important things than going to a play, people.
Well, he's rejected the aesthetic plane.
Yeah.
He is now in the ethical plane. And you see that with how decorous he was during these chapters when he's talking about, to our earlier quote about pain and death and calling it. He is starting to struggle and step up from that to saying, what are the social and ethical things that I should be doing for other people in terms of being married and how I should treat my wife and how I should treat things? What are the societal pressures that get put on me? And I'm sure there's...
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I was going to say, and not only how he should have treated or should treat his sickness, his family, his wife, his friends, but also how he wants to be treated. He's like, hey, I'm dying. The social norm of this is you guys should give me sympathy and pity me and baby me, and he wants to cry. And maybe it's a Russian thing, but I still think that identity is almost a male thing, or maybe it's an American macho thing too, that machismo, which is in many cultures, where like he can't cry, he can't just hug one of his friends or his kids or his wife and just say, I'm scared, and we should be able to do that as a society. And I think that's also in that second plane of existence too.
Yeah, I would see that. The pressures of living up of what should I do, what should a man do? But then you enter the third phase, right? You notice how in chapter 2, it was kind of like the first, was it 20, 40 years, 35 years of his life? It's a long period of time. And then you'll notice as the chapters go on, it's like several months go by, a month goes by, weeks go by, days go by, that there's like this ramping of, 3 representing.
We've talked many times before. The resurrection.
Resurrection. Yep. Which all leads down to that final phase, which is the religious phase of living for God, right?
Yep.
And that's when you have the priest come give him communion. You have this black bag, which I think is meant to represent kind of like a spiritual rebirth, if you will.
His soul, maybe? That's what I kind of thought, maybe.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That you get kind of like this tie-in to him finally realizing that I've lived wrong. I should have been in this third plane of existence, this living for God. And I don't think this was directly meant to be like a Kierkegaard translation, but I think, they both were existentialists. They both probably had similar values in terms of their religious awakenings, both born aristocratic, surrounded by death, that these two authors, whether by fate or happenstance, kind of converged into a similar way of thinking. And that is one of the things that I'm just shocked that there's not more writing comparing these two. That was one of the most important things to help me digest this was thankfully that I actually have read a lot of Kierkegaard in the past, just because I found it interesting and fascinating trying to interpret own things in my life.
I think we've kind of gone long enough for now. I think I have a few more points that maybe we could do a part 2 video, and we'd talk a few more topics of social aspects, economic aspects, and of course the overall theme of religion.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this for days very easily. So let's wrap this up as like this was the philosophic kind of Kierkegaard comparison, and we're going to go into your parts next with a part 2.
Subscribe. Smash that button.
Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. It helps us out immensely as we are trying to unlock several features that YouTube's like, hey, you're too small. You can't do cool things.
Give us cool toys, please.
All right, guys. Peace out, and stay tuned for part 2.
Peace.